What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. On today's episode, we actually have some Chicago Bulls news. It's been quite a while since we had some actual news outside of like draft workouts, things like that with the Chicago Bulls. These are coming from Daniel Greenberg, so we'll go over that. We'll also be talking about the Bulls showing interest, per these reports, in Micic, Vasilije Micic. I know I probably murdered his first name, but this is a Serbian player, point guard, and we'll talk about that. So we'll talk about all these rumors and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
All right, Bulls fans. So first up, the first one coming out the gate is that Zach LaVine is now expected to re-sign with the Chicago Bulls. This is something that I've been saying to you guys very heavily. I think most outlets, even with all the Zach LaVine rumors now, it always made more sense for Zach LaVine to return to the Chicago Bulls. And while some fans doubt him earning the max and things like that, all signs always pointed to Zach LaVine returning to the Chicago Bulls on the max. A lot of the trade rumors and things that we had where I've told you guys were just off-season content, writers trying to come up with something to generate some buzz during these downtimes in the offseason, and also probably things that leaked from Clutch Sports. Now, with that being said, is Zach LaVine still going to field and sit downs with teams? Probably, at least some. Probably give some teams a chance to just see what they offer, but everything points right now to Zach LaVine re-signing with the Chicago Bulls. So all the sign and trade possibilities, all the trade, everything. It's more than likely it was never going to happen. Everything pointed. There were $55 million reasons of why Zach LaVine should be returning to the Chicago Bulls, on top of everything just with this team continue to improve, having a front office that is invested in building a team around him. I know a lot of Bulls fans, oh, well, it's actually DeMar's. All that was noise. Zach LaVine, more than likely now, and I like the fact that it's turning. You're getting more reports now of Zach LaVine returning to the Chicago Bulls, because it was always the more likely scenario. Now, again, I told you guys, I've even labeled it, this is going to be the summer of Zach LaVine rumors. So expect, even with this report coming out that he's more than likely to re-sign with Chicago Bulls, still expect between now, we're about 3 weeks until the opening of free agency. Expect more rumors to still come out. Expect you're going to get some things that are simple as like, Zach LaVine talked to Dame Lillard on the phone. You're going to get some things like that, right? And it's going to make sense, right? This is, like I said, offseason, Clutch Sports, everything going into it, but everything points to Zach LaVine returning to the Chicago Bulls. Next thing up that we have, and matter of fact, you guys should be following Daniel Greenberg. If you don't, his ad is Shy Sports Updates. He really does keep everything updated with rumors and everything going on with the Chicago Bulls. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure you follow as well. The Bulls are exploring the trade market for Nikola Vucevic. Now, with that, what does that really mean? I'm gonna, I like to bring things to be realistic here. Exploring trade options or the trade market is different from saying that he's on the trading block, like we heard with Coby White, right? Exploring trade, it makes sense to explore the trade market for a $22 million expiring contract and a player that still averaged 17 and 11. Let's be clear here. That's always going to happen. You are going to explore the trade market. Basically, what I take that as is listening to trade deals. If anybody wants to present something, maybe making some calls just to see what some of the interests are. But I don't know if that's anything as far as like actively trying to go out and trade Nikola Vucevic. Now, we talked about, AK's already said that continuity is going to be highly important for this team. And with that being said, if those words are true, then everything points to Nikola Vucevic returning back. But is there a chance that Vooch may be traded? Absolutely. You'd be foolish not to think that there's a chance that they're probably going to be exploring or listening to trade ideas in the trade market the whole season up until the trade deadline, because you just never know who may come available, especially at the trade deadline mid-season, and having an expiring $22 million contract for a player that, like I said, still averaged 17 and 11, it makes sense. I know that the Bulls fans are down. I know that we didn't get the player that we expected that we were going to have with Nikola Vucevic this year. Some of that is coaching. Some of that's on him and his inability to shoot threes. All those things. We know the defensive woes and everything like that. But with that being said, there is going to be a lot of interest from I would expect there to be, let me not say a lot. There's going to be some interest from teams, especially if they're looking to go into a full rebuild. They have a disgruntled star. They have just a piece that doesn't fit their long-term goals. Having an expiring contract that expires at the end of this season is going to be a big trade chip for almost any other team in the league. Now, yes, the Bulls don't have their own first-round pick. They have that Portland pick. that may be enticing to a team as well that may be going into a rebuild. You may be able to package Vooch with that Portland pick to then get a nice piece into this team of a team that just doesn't fit into another team's long-term plans. You hear the Atlanta Hawks may be shopping Collins and things like that. I'm not saying that it's likely, right? I'm not reporting or saying that, hey, we should go after Collins. I'm just saying that things like that may be a possibility if a team. Now, Collins is probably a bad example because they can get way more than what the Bulls can offer for Collins, but I'm just using that as an example of just, you never know what a team's going to try to do at the trade deadline. You never know what star is going to be on the market or want to force their way out. You never know what teams' offseason acquisitions or plans may go completely left and they say, hey, we got to blow this thing up. You never know. But having a big-time trade chip like a Nikola Vucevic and his $22 million expiring contract and still be able to contribute if you're on like a veteran team, for example, like, again, completely high side. I'm not saying that this is a possibility. I'm just using this as an example. Like Ayton, if the Suns are truly looking to move on from Ayton, let's say they don't get the deal they like, they go ahead and sign him to extension, but they want to move him, and they can bring in Vooch, another veteran to pair with what they have going on down there that they can probably re-sign for way less money than what Ayton's going to make long term, and maybe get that Portland first-round pick for a team that has, at that point, age and veterans. Things like that can happen. You never know what position you may be in. And as well, like, we don't know what happens with Marco. We don't know who the Bulls are going to draft that may be able to slot in or be able to sign that may be able to slot in for that long-term center. We just don't know. But having a piece and being in this position is smart. And that's why when people talk about like the Wendell Carter deal, and you guys know I've been very vocal on the fact that, yes, Wendell Carter got better stats this season, but he didn't really play better. He just had more opportunity. But with that being said, because I don't want to start a war in the comments with that, bringing in Vooch was always a calculated trade when you look at it. Yes, you gave up probably more first-round capital than what you wanted to, and giving up a first-round, well, 2 first-round picks, the one that turned into Franz Wagner and the one that they'll have next season. Yes, it does suck that you gave that up, but you put yourself in a really nice position for the long-term cap space because Zach LaVine is signing a deal. Now you have a $22 million expiring contract that's coming off next season that can be used depending on what you do. And like, we have to now sign Io to an extension. So things like that. It was always a calculated and a smart risk from AK because they didn't really sign long-term money to Vooch. Now, with that being said, I still expect Vooch to be a Chicago Bull. I think Vooch is going to have a hell of a season this year in a contract year. But hearing that the Bulls are exploring the trade market or seeing what that market is for Vooch, it's just the sensible thing to do. More than likely, he'll still be here. We'll see what happens. I even think that there's a chance that Vooch may sign an extension with the Chicago Bulls at the end of the season, depending on what things may happen. Maybe, and he won't be as prominent a role. But again, it remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. But AK and Eversley, as they always done, have put themselves in a nice position. Next rumor that we have up are the Bulls. See, this is what the difference is between exploring the trade market and actively. Says that the next rumor is that the Bulls are actively discussing the number 18th pick and Coby White with teams. Again, this is something that we expected. Now, coming into this offseason, I've always said that I expect the Bulls to move their first-round pick this season to try to bring in and secure that bench. Not that, some people think that the Bulls are going to go after a big-time star or something like that with that 18th pick to try to trade. I don't think that's necessarily going to be what they do, but I do think that they could look to try to move up. They can package the 18th pick with Coby to try to move up a couple of spots to really get their guy. You guys know I've been very vocal on some of the guards like Malachi, I forgot his last name at this point, but he's one of the players that I do think that the Bulls should look and try to Malachi Branham. There it goes. Come on now, Haize. But to package and move up because he is, if you move Coby and that 18th pick, you move up a couple of spots, you are able to draft him. He comes in as not only somebody who can facilitate off the bench, but does replace Coby White and probably is going to be a more consistent scorer even as a rookie because of his versatility and how he can score. So again, don't want to make it that be the focus of like, who can we go after? But again, AK and Eversley putting themselves in a better position and making the smart move. Packaging Coby with that 18th pick was always more intelligent. I know some people wanted to see Coby, rightfully so in many ways, moved last season at the trade deadline. But listen, it always made more sense to wait. You got to see how he looked on an improved team. And in January and February, December, January, and February for that matter, looked really, really good. And now maybe some team sees that and says, hey, well, the Bulls took a decline after February as a team. We have some time to invest in Coby White and develop him. And we're getting the 18th pick too, so we're not moving completely out of the lottery or too far down. There is a possibility that the Bulls do move up in this draft and select somebody who's going to be quite a contributor for them off the bench? Is that a guard, a scoring threat off the bench? Is that a big that we know there are a lot of bigs in this draft, especially upper, that are expected to go between that like 12th and 15, 14 range that the Bulls are kind of just outside of, that they could moving up just a couple of spots could very well get them their big that they need off the bench with a lot of upside and some defensive potential right now. So a lot of things. It's again, one of the things and the themes of this episode is smart moves. The AKME and Eversley are just a smart front office that put themselves in the proper and right positions and packaging, looking to move that 18th pick and Coby. It's the smart move right now. Yes, Coby still has a lot of potential. Let me be clear here, right? I know some people are hugely down on Coby. Look at Coby's December, January, and February. That's exactly what we need from him. It just wasn't consistent. Now that could play a part in the coaching, could play a part in the injuries that he didn't have a consistent. There's a lot of things that could go into that, right? Other than just blaming Coby, but Coby absolutely has a place in his inconsistency as well. But to say, and I know some people thought that Coby had next to no trade value. Coby had anybody who can score like Coby can, and they're as young as he can, always going to have some trade value in the league. You up that by packaging an 18th overall pick with it and possibly move up in the draft. Now, there is some talk too. Do the Bulls move back in the draft? Do they see a guy like an EJ Liddell who's slated to go later and say, hey, why select him at 18th, pay more money when we can save some, possibly move back in the draft, get some more, maybe a future second or a second in this draft, and draft the EJ Liddell? Absolutely as well. There's a lot of different options and routes that AKME and Eversley can go after in this. And like I've said before, versatility in what they do, flexibility in what they do. AKME and Eversley are always great at that. They put themselves in great positions to kind of do either or things. You can really see in so many different of these scenarios them getting a great player no matter if they move up or down, right? Now, yes, moving up secures you probably a player with more upside potential, but in this draft, there's a lot of high floor players with lower ceilings that also could get you a hell of a player to come off the bench and possibly a scorer, especially looking at their worth ethic and things like that. Again, AKME and Eversley, flexibility, they do the right thing. Let's trust what they do. Last thing in this whole rumor thing is that the Bulls are showing interest in Vasilije Micic. Micic? Listen, I'm bad with names, right? Micic. That's what it is. It's Micic. I can say his last name. The first name I need some help on. But this is a player who initially was drafted, I believe, by the Philadelphia 76ers. His draft rights were acquired by the Oklahoma City Thunder. So this is a player that he's a point guard now. Let's be clear. He's a point guard. Now he's a pretty decent sized point guard at that. I think he's 6'8". So he can absolutely come in, play point guard, play shooting guard. Now, what does this mean? He's 28 years old. So again, this isn't necessarily a high upside pick. This will probably be a player who's ready to come in and contribute now if the Bulls do bring him over. And again, this is the type of player that AK has shown types of interest in before. Somebody who can come in right away, do some things. He's 6'5", 203 pounds, point guard / shooting guard. Again, I know we have a lot of guards on this roster, especially now with Javonte Green moving back to guard. But with the uncertainty of Lonzo Ball's injury, with the potential of bringing in this guy at 28 years old, coming in, maybe not making a lot of money, but to be a end of the bench player that you can bet on. And go and look at his highlights. The guy can pass and can shoot, right? Wouldn't say he's not super athletic, anything like that, but this is a player that I can absolutely see AKME and Eversley bringing in to kind of shore up and add some added security to that point guard rotation if needed, especially looking at the injuries that we had last season. So maybe it's something like that. Still another interesting move from this Bulls front office. I do love, we're getting closer to the draft. This picture is going to start being more clear the closer and closer that we get to the draft and what we see AKME and Eversley do. On draft night, do not be surprised if you don't hear not one deal from the Chicago Bulls, but multiple deals come from the Chicago Bulls moving around, moving in that draft, and we'll see. An exciting time to be a Chicago Bulls fan. We're getting close to the draft. A week after that is the opening of free agency. And it's going to be an exciting time to see how AKME and Eversley continue to reshape this team and to put a better team on the court. Let me know what you guys think about all this down below. What do you think happens with the Coby White in the 18th pick? Do you think they're able to move one or both of them? Do you think they move up or down in the draft? Who would you like to see them target if they do move up or down in the draft? Does these now reinvigorated rumors that Zach LaVine is expected to re-sign with the Chicago Bulls add some? And then lastly, Vooch. Do you think Vooch makes it to the end of this season as a Chicago Bull? Let me know the answers to all those questions down below. Make sure you're following the podcast at Bull Central Pod. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave us a text and or voicemail for our mailbag episodes, the number to do so is 773-270-2799. Thank you for tuning in to Chicago Bulls Central or listening if you're on the podcast side. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.